talk to you about a few things, and I was sitting here thinking before before we got stressed out with the technology, I was sitting here very relaxed, thinking about what I wanted to talk to you tonight about. And when I put this together this afternoon, I realized that this was kind of a more of an adult conversation. And then after I said here this night, I thought, well, maybe it's too adult. But on the other hand, there's things that I really wanted to share with you that I think I hope you take it in the spirit it's given to learn and try to understand a little bit more in depth of how network marketing works. But I wanted to first announce, as I start into this, that we are going to be introducing, the Global Partners is going to be introducing a mobile training system in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And that's a system where you're going to have the fast start, you're going to have basic training, advanced training, leadership training, all in the palm of your hand. And we're very, very excited about it. And Kathy and I are going into a studio on Wednesday to pretty much put a lot of the fast start together. We've been coordinating this with the other founders, Judy and Ian, Sandy, Carey, and you're going to see a lot of training modules from them and ourselves. And we feel that this is the future, and this is going to be a program that I think could put everybody on the same page, learning the basic foundational principles on how to build a business, and be able to watch it over and over and over again on your mobile device, whether you're waiting for an appointment at a doctor's office or wherever you happen to be. It seems like we always have our phone with us. And we're very excited about this program. We're going to tell you more about it as everything is starting to come together. I think you're going to find it extremely professional, much further ahead than just having some kind of a computer system or whatever. But this is going to be something that I think is going to help train you and help train your team. And when I was talking to Kathy, earlier today, I says, I'm not really sure what to talk about tonight, because we do so many trainings on how to build your business and build your team. But what I really wanted to talk about was about building yourself. And, Kathy said, Paula, maybe what you should just talk about is your journey. And for any of you that have ever read my book, Owning Yourself, you realize I talk about my journey a lot, because I really feel that my journey is a lesson that I can pass on to others to make them believe in themselves and believe that they can do it, and realize that they're not really that different from some of us who have made it to the top. But when I was sitting here thinking about it, I was thinking about this slide. And I wanted to point this slide out because when I first saw my first network marketing business, which as many of you know is Amway, I was sitting in a living room and this was the very first slide I saw. Only these circles were empty. And I can remember that they asked the people who were in the living room, everyone was seated to hear the presentation. They went around the room and asked us to share what our dreams or our goals were, what we wanted in life. And I can remember how some people hesitated. I really, I used to make a joke about it. It was almost like their dream machine was broken, because if you look at a little kid, you ask them what they want in life. I mean, they can tell you, who they're going to marry, where they're going to, what they're going to be when they grow up. But, we're all like that as kids. But as we get to become adults, all of a sudden reality sets in. And it's almost like our dream machine is broke. We forgot how to dream. And I remember they drew this big circle, and then what they did is they said the only problem is we've got this other little circle over here, and they put a dollar sign in it. And what the example that was given is how sometimes we take our dreams, like buying our dream car, instead trying to make the car we have last a couple more years, or if we wanted to go on a cruise, instead let's rent a pontoon boat for next Saturday, or instead of traveling, maybe we'll go to Disney World, and if we can't afford Disney World, I mean, if we live in Florida, obviously that's easier, but if we can't afford to go to Disney World, maybe we'll go to the local carnival. Or we used to make a joke at the time because in front of Kmart, they used to have these little carousels, and how we would put our kids on the carousel and say, pretend you're at Disney World. But at the end of the day, money does play a big factor and sometimes what happens with money and reality is instead of trying to find a way to increase that money circle to encompass our dream circle, what instead we do is we squeeze our dreams down to nothing, to the point that we hardly remember what they were, and we try to squeeze it into the money circle. And I can remember what an impression this slide made on me, because I never thought about it that way, about how I was living within my means. I was teaching at a university, I had a dream job, but the income wasn't that great. And then they drew this picture. And they talked about the 40-year plan versus the 2 to 5 year plan. And they listed things down each column here about the 40-year plan and how you retire on, and you get a gold watch or whatever, and how sometimes we're in a rut. It's just got the ends knocked out and running back and forth in that rut. And I thought about people I knew working 8 to 5, 8 to 5. I had a little bit more flexible schedule, but at the end of the day, when I really was honest with myself, I had no control over my freedom or the kind of money I was making. I didn't really have a way to increase that money unless I wrote a textbook or maybe took on some extra coaching positions at the university or whatever. And when they showed the 2 to 5 year plan, they showed how I could retire within 2 to 5 years, how I could reach an income that would pay me ongoing forever, kind of like writing a novel or a book and getting the royalties, or writing a song and getting the royalties and living off them for the rest of your life. And I thought, this plan really sounds like a much better plan. I mean, look at it. It's a lot. It takes a major, look at how many years, even if it took me 5 years, that meant 35 years of my work life, I would have the freedom and the money to live it however I wanted to. And so I thought to myself, this looks really easy. I mean, who wouldn't want to do this? And if I shared this with other people, who wouldn't see what I saw? And, obviously it wasn't that simple, because I realized that not everybody saw it the way I saw it. And not everybody liked the idea of me becoming more successful or pursuing my dreams, because it might make them feel more uncomfortable. Everybody likes people to stay in the status quo. No one wants to feel uncomfortable. Everybody, it's like I always told people, no one in your neighborhood is going to come out in the street and cheer you on to become really successful so you can move out of your neighborhood. They're really comfortable with you living in your neighborhood. They're really comfortable with you making around the same kind of money. And I can remember hearing one time that if you took your 5 closest friends, and if you even guessed at what their income was and divided it by 5, you would pretty much represent what your income was, because we tend to become who we hang out with. We tend to become the people who we surround ourselves with. And I don't mean that in a negative way, except if you want to grow beyond that. I realized that if I was going to become successful, that success really lives outside of your comfort zone. And I'm going to tell you, that's when you have to stretch. That's when you have to grow bigger. That's when you go, and I'm not telling you that kind of growth isn't painful, because you'll go through some pain. You'll have some rejection. You'll have some people that want to share their opinion with you, even though you didn't ask for it. I don't know why in network marketing people feel that they have the right to tell you what they think of network marketing or your business. But you would be, it would be too rude for you to tell them what you think about their career or their business. It's just kind of the weirdest kind of setup. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be successful in this kind of business, you have to be willing to grow, to stretch, to move beyond your comfort zone. I learned that if there were things I wanted, sense of urgency was key. And I also learned that without a sense of urgency, whatever your goal is, your desire, it will lose value without a sense of urgency. So this is an area where I see people struggle because they try to be successful, but they try to stay comfortable. And I'm telling you, it doesn't work. One of the great lessons I learned about network marketing when I got involved was the responsibility aspect, how important it was that I had to take responsibility. No excuses. In other words, when you're in business for yourself, you forget the fact that, oh, I got to buy my own pencils, I got to pay for my own travel, I've got to pay for my own phone bill. I can't say, well, somebody didn't help me, or they're not working with me, or, it's raining today. I mean, if you're going to be successful, you are the boss. You are the boss. You are the employer of yourself. And, one of the things I learned about was not to make excuses. Never made excuses about anything. The other was I had to escape from stinking thinking. A lot of the things I did in the beginning was I read books, I listened to tapes, I took charge of my mind. I was working to make myself better. But when you come out of the regular world, I mean, the regular world is competitive. There's a lot of ego clashes out there. There's people that they're trying to climb the ladder. They want to have the car, the house, the whatever. And when you aren't where you want to be, when people aren't where they want to be, sometimes they get around the water cooler and they commiserate with others, why they're in the same spot. And, it's comfortable to seek out people that are thinking the way you are thinking. It's comfortable to hang out with the people who are like yourself. But it takes, if you're going to grow in something like this, you have to seek out the people that are going to uplift you. You have to seek out the people who are where you want to be. I've talked about that all the time. I see people who get into a business like this, and they bring some of the same stinking thinking from the regular world into this business, whether they're complaining about they don't have the right sponsor, or maybe they feel they got in too late, or the business is too hard in their state, like it might be too hard in Florida, or the company screwed up my order, the company doesn't have in the back office, they don't have the monitoring system they need, or they don't have this, or they don't have that. And, or I'm in the wrong line, or I'm with the wrong team. The problem is that kind of thinking, you attract more people that think like that. It's kind of loser. I call it loser thinking. And you hang out with loser thinking, you're not going to become a winner hanging out with that kind of thinking. And I had to work really hard initially to separate myself from those kind of people. People who told me I was doing the wrong thing, I was heading the wrong direction. And that's what's been so great about the Global Partners Group, because it's like an alternative world. It's like you're entering a world where people care about one another, where people encourage one another, where people help one another, where people are constantly trying to be uplifting. The other thing I learned in my early days in network marketing was certain etiquette. How important it was to respect one another, to encourage one another, to be kind. I mean, I know that there's sometimes people will walk up and I don't know who they are, and I might have had a really bad day, but and I might not be where I want to be in the business. And all of a sudden they come up and they want a few words or something. And if I was short or I turned away, that could ruin that person's career in network marketing. I mean, I could blow somebody out of the business by being curt or disrespectful. And, I learned early on in my climb that I might have only been to maybe one of the first or second ranks. And maybe I was never where I wanted to be, but to that someone just starting, I was exactly where they wanted to be. And I always had to remember how important it was. And we used to have the saying in network marketing, positives go down line, negatives go up line. And when you're in a binary, you have to remember that means your enrollment tree. In other words, if I sponsored Susie Q, and Susie Q was having a bad day, I wouldn't expect her to run to Carrie Dean and say, Carrie, I'm having a terrible day and this company stinks and they did this to me. You might think, well, Carrie has big shoulders. That's not the point. Carrie's not their upline. Carrie is a sideline. And by doing that, it could be hurting Carrie's sponsor, Sandy's business, or Ian and Judy's business. Carrie's a close bud of mine, and Carrie and I talk a lot. But I don't come and dump on Carrie something that's happened, to me or in my business. And I wouldn't expect another diamond from another line to be calling me and dumping on me some kind of negative thing they're having to experience, or or, you know, maybe they had to go get a job because the checks aren't working right now. They don't need to be telling me that. You might think, well, Paula, you're really strong. That's not the issue. The issue is it always takes a piece of you when you have that stuff. And sometimes, you know, I know with, especially even in global partners, I mean, we all become very close, and we forget this golden rule about positives going downline, negatives going upline. We think, well, this person's in my downline, and they might not be sponsored by me, but we're really close. I can tell them anything I'm thinking. And you might think that, and that's great. But at the end of the day, it's disrespectful to their sponsor, and it's disrespectful to them as far as their growth, because I don't care what, negatives are so powerful. Negatives are, sometimes it takes time to push a negative out of your mind. And that's why we all have to be so careful and respectful of the example we're setting. And understand that you're always setting an example. You know, your people they're always watching you. Your group's watching you, your sidelines are watching you. They, you know, you set an example. That's why when I go to meetings, I set in the meetings. I try to take notes. Why? Because I want my people to take notes. I don't want my people to be sitting outside the meetings. I wanted to be in the meetings, because I never know if someone on the stage is going to say something that they needed to hear. And here they were out in the hallway talking, you know, playing around, and not in the meeting paying attention. So I know that I have to set the example. You know, if I have to be duplicatable, if whatever I want them to do, I have to look at myself and say, am I doing it first? You know, I can remember people who would come to meetings and complain that their downline didn't bring anyone to the meeting as a guest. And I can remember looking at them and saying, well, who did you bring? Because, you know, your people look at you and what you're doing. And understand, in any undertaking, I don't care if it's this business or what, you're always going to be dealing with resistance. Resistance is that negative force that keeps you from moving forward to something even better. You know, I always find that resistance shows up, and this is a common thing throughout the universe. I mean, it shows up when you're starting a new venture. You get all excited, and then you start to have doubts. Or when you're going to start a new diet, or let's say you're going to start a workout program. You're all excited, or you're going to go for a rank. I'm going to be at this rank by this date. And then all of a sudden the creeping doubts come in. This is normal. You know, we always used to talk about the creeping doubts. But at the end of the day, understand this resistance is disguised as fear, doubt, and procrastination. So when you feel fear, when you feel doubt, when you're taking your time, when you're procrastinating, you have to recognize it for what it is. It's the universe's resistance that's coming your way, and it's something you have to push aside and overcome. Because if you don't, you're not going to make it in this kind of business. You're just not going to make it. You have to push forward. And you know, one of the things I've always talked about is pushing through the fear, because I know in my comfort zone, coming out of my comfort zone was so fearful. I can remember feeling the fear to the point you thought you're gonna get nauseous. And I didn't like rejection. I didn't want to hear rejection. But you know, I know that you cannot let failure define you. You know, if you quit a business like this, if you quit on yourself, it's something that will never leave you. You know, you push through the no's. There's, you know, one of the things I learned, and, you know, I'm trying to think of the book. It has to do with the no's. I'll have to put it on our reading list with the Global Partners Group. But, you know, pushing through the no's. I used to think no's were on one side of the equation and yeses were on the other. And then I realized that no's were on the same side as the yeses. You just had to push through them to get to the yeses. And I eventually learned through statistics to evaluate my ratios. Okay, how many people do I talk to before I find one, you know, somebody who wants to see the business? And initially my ratios were, for every 5 I talked to, 1 said, yes, I'd like to see the business. And for every 5 I showed the business to, 1 said, yes, I'd like to get involved in the business. So my ratios were 1 to 5, but eventually I got them down to 1 to 3. That got to be the point where every 3 people I talked to, 1 wanted to see my business. Every 3 that wanted to see it, 1 got in. And for every 3 that got in, 1 actually did something. Understand, not everybody who gets in does something, but that's okay. Some will do a little bit, some will do nothing. But you know, you can't have it define you. You can't have it determine whether you make it to the top or whether you don't. And The other thing is I used to make it more painful to be a quitter than to succeed. I used to make it more painful to quit than to go through the nose. And, you know, I used to make a joke later because when I would win the trips, like the Mediterranean cruise that Judy was talking about, who wouldn't, that's a trip of a lifetime. There are people out there who will never go on a Mediterranean cruise. There are people who will never go to Europe. And yet here you have at your fingertips an opportunity for so many people to go. All you have to do is open your mouth. And the worst thing that could happen is they say no. So big deal. I will tell you, when you're on that cruise, you'll have a hard time remembering who those people were that said no. I promise you that. But at the same time, you know, I want you to know, I am today who I am because of the pain, because of the fear, because of these no's, and then because of the breakthroughs. I ended up doing things I never thought I would do because I wanted it so bad. You know, when I think about breakthrough, I think of the time when I was calling on farms trying to sell this product called spray adjuvant to farms. It made their herbicides and their pesticides work better. And I can remember struggling to reach a goal and knocking on farm doors to try to convince them, you know, that this product would give them a better yield. And it was so, I'll never forget on a Saturday, it was the last day of the month, and I was short, so much volume. And I covered the entire county, but I had one place I had to go back to, and I stopped at this one house, and it was the guy who lived there was the owner of the Western Pancake Houses, which were really big in Columbus, Ohio, and that's where I was working at the time. And he invited me in, and he told me his story of success in the Western Pancake Houses. And when I was leaving, he wished me the best, and just as I was getting in the car, he yelled out from the house. He said, "Remember, Paula, hard work makes luck." And I wrote it down on a piece of paper, and I thought, it's 6 o'clock. Should I drive all the way back across the county to this one place? And I ended up doing it. And this guy was leaving for dinner, but he said, how many 5-gallon pails would I need to cover so many acres? And I was so nervous, I couldn't hardly count. But at the end, he put in an order that made me go over the top. That was a miracle. That was a breakthrough. I mean, I never question, if you work hard enough and you're focused on a goal, how these miracles can come through. But you have to surrender. You have to make a decision that you're not going to quit. And when people say, what was the key to your success, Paula? You know, my key was, you know, I didn't quit. I didn't quit. That was the secret. I didn't quit. You know, Jim Rohn says, don't wish things were easier. Wish that you were better. Become a person of powerful habits. You know, decide how many calls you're going to make every day and make them. I don't care if it's raining, snowing, if you're sick to your stomach. I've told this to a number of people. I made the calls even when I didn't feel like it. Most importantly, I made them when no one was watching, when I could have just as easily turned on the TV and not done anything that day. But, you know, I created a daily method of operation. I was going to make these calls no matter what. You know, I was going to be a person of habits. I was going to have a method that I did every day. And my secret was I didn't quit. So, you know, I want to finish tonight with just saying to you that, you know, when you push through and you make yourself go out of that comfort zone, you are forever changed. I am not the person I was when I started network marketing. I was forever changed because I was willing to step off the curb. I was willing to step across the line. I knew that, you know, network marketing worked. I saw too many people being successful at it. Why shouldn't it work for me? I just had to pay the price. I didn't rely on old glories or successes because once I did it, even when I started another company, I had to start I had to make it happen as if I was starting over. You know, I couldn't rely on I'd gotten accolades from the stage before. I had to know that, you know, fame can be fleeting. I had to earn it again. And, you know, one of the things I want to leave you with is, you know, I believe if it took you 5 years, then so be it. And I'm going to tell you, if it takes you 5 years to be successful there, it'll be worth every year. It'll be worth every day, every month, every week, whatever. it'll be worth it. But if you focus on 90 days of intensity, I'm going to tell you what, you can change your business in 90 days. And when you change it, if you put intensity, when you're making so many calls a day for 90 days, anybody can stay on purpose for 90 days. Anybody can make the calls, push through the pain, and do it for 90 days. You do it for 90 days, that pain is going to disappear. And I'm going to tell you, any business I've ever built, that first 90 days, that business was off and running. If I eventually did a second 90 days, I was on the road. That was the income I needed to lead me to a long-term residual income. Strong 90 days, every single day of intensity. You know, if you put a 90-day thing together, a 90-day period together, it'll change your business dramatically. If you do a couple in a row, you'll never work again. So with that, I've gone over a couple minutes. I wish I could have seen you tonight, but I want to tell you, we're here to help you. We're excited for your success, and I don't care what the journey is. We're going to be there beside you to make it. So with that, everyone, have a great evening. Thank you very much.